Wait a second. I don't understand. The A's did they won?
You are Locked On A's, your daily Oakland A's podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, let's see if I get through this one without crying. Hello, A's fans, and welcome to Locked On A's. This is the podcast we talk about your Oakland A's all season long as part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. If you don't believe me, I can prove it. I have a lower third where I'm called Sully. I am a baseball podcaster. I've been so over a decade now, and I think something screwy happened with the live feed here because it says I've been going for a minute and a half, and I clearly haven't been. So if you caught me picking my nose, what can you say? Hey, it's a live feed. What are you going to do? Follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter or whatever the hell it's called now, and on Instagram. And you could follow us. Follow me. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And also check me out 5 days a week at Locked On MLB. On the episode drop today, I talked a little bit about Willie Mays and his death, and by the end, I was crying. So I have that going for us. Hey, by the way, today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy baseball. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedonmlb and use code all lowercase lockedonmlb for a first deposit match up to $100. I don't know what happens if you mixed up your lowercase, uppercase, whether that's going to mess anything up with you. By the way, you may see I have a different background than I normally do. I am not in my home. I'm actually in Palo Alto, California. And I am recording this in a room that is not where I normally do it. This is not going to be my background for my entire time I was up here, but this is where I'm recording today. By the way, for those of you, I see a couple people popping in and out into the live chat. Let me know how the new microphone is going. I have a different mic than I normally use for today. Hey, show of hands, how many of you thought the A's were going to blow it? When the Royals were starting to rally and they put a couple runs on the board in the 8th inning, and suddenly a 7-3 game turned to a 7-5 game. Be honest with me. How many of you started thinking this is where the Royals are going to rally? Because if you're an A's fan, that whole 7-3 lead on the Royals in the 8th inning probably has an eerily, ominous tone to it. If you remember the wild card game of 2014 when the Royals came back, wiping out a late lead. But yeah, I mean, first of all, when the Royals got a fellow named Lofton, who I had never heard of before, get a big home run, a 2-run home run to tie the game in the 2nd inning, I just shrugged and said, well, there we go again. Because the A's took a 2-0 lead in the first. They came home after this, in the middle of a 9-game losing streak, after a disastrous, absolutely calamity-inducing 6-game road trip where they lost all the games. 3 of them were walk-offs. They came home to 7,000 people. Remember what I said? You can always rely on 7,000 people to show up in Oakland. No matter what, there are 7,000 A's fans who will show up no matter what you do to the A's fans. They're going to show up. Well, they came in on a Tuesday after a bone-crushing road trip and said, yeah, 7,000 of you showed up. And good for all 7,000 of you for showing up for game 1 against KC. And in that first inning, we saw that, Bleday hit his first of, I think, 43 doubles he hit last night. He drove home Schumann, and, the A's want to take a 2-0 lead, and then Lofton hits the 2-run homer. And then things started getting interesting. Bleday got another double. Boom. Andujar got a single. And then Geloff hit the home run. Suddenly it was 7-2. And I'm thinking to myself, okay. I started doing, riding the rocking horse. You start doing that. You know, admit that you do that, A's fan. So you're going like, all right, maybe. But you know what? We did maybe enough times during the San Diego series. Okay? So maybe we pump the brakes a little bit and hope that the A's can actually pull this off. And then you got the Royals rallied in the 8th. That weirdo Lofton drove in another run. I'm like, oh God, you're going to do it. You're going to blow this game, aren't you? You're going to blow this game, aren't you? And out comes our dear buddy, Mr. Miller, to pitch the 9th. Now, remember, Mr. Miller was pitching at a superhuman level for a period of time. He is no longer pitching at a superhuman level. You know, he lost a couple of games. He's blown a couple of saves. He's not been, you know, the second coming of Mariano Rivera. He's merely been a good reliever. He's gone from Rivera to Billy Koch. And what we got last night was old school Miller. 1, 2, 3 inning, got himself a strikeout. And remember, even though he's had, he's had a few bumps and bruises over the last, the last couple of games. You see, the last 7 games, his ERA is over 3. Okay, he had the blown save in against San Diego. But remember, he is still pitching to a 2.20 earned run average. He has still had 26 games. He has saved 13. For a team that is sub 400 to have 13 saves, I find that impressive. He has pitched 32 and 2/3 innings. And in those 32 and 2/3 innings, he has 57 strikeouts and 12 walks to 57 strikeouts. So there you go. I'm pleased as punch that we got ourselves an old school Miller performance. Out of old school, is June, but there was. And what have I been saying this whole year? Win that first game of a series. The minute you win the first game of the series, the entire tone of the series changes. The entire sense of urgency changes. Everything about it changes just slightly. So now the A's have a tall order going on today's game. They're going to be starting Medina, and the Royals are starting Reagans. And Reagans is a good pitcher who the Royals absolutely stole from Texas last year. They sent human piece of garbage, Aroldis Chapman, and who really, he was on the Rangers team. The Rangers won the World Series. They didn't win because Chapman did anything special. And the Royals, for getting rid of that guy, they got themselves a good, solid young pitcher. May we all make trades like that. But he's a good pitcher for KC. And KC is going up against him. We're seeing with Medina. But they've already know they're not being swept this series. You already know that the stink of the losing streak is gone. The pressure of that is gone. So now, either beat Reagans or on Thursday afternoon, Lugo against Spence. Okay, both of those are tall orders. In fact, today's game is probably their better chance because Lugo's been one of the best acquisitions in all of baseball. They picked him up off the garbage heap, and they suddenly got a Cy Young contender. But Spence has been pitching pretty well, too. So maybe turn into a battle of the bullpens. I don't know. Neither do you. All I know is going in today, we don't have to worry about when they're going to win their next game. And as Carlos Vargas points out, Miller time was great to see. Absolutely it was, buddy. Absolutely it was. Well, tell you what, we get back, happy to win at home. Absolutely. When we get back, your pal Sully is going to try to keep it together and not cry because a big thing happened yesterday and with a player who has an interesting connection with the Oakland A's. Now, passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotor.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. And eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available for U.S. customers. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app. With more than 5 million members, it's the most fun and exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. Just vote more than or less than on 2 or more players' stats for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. With PrizePicks, you could turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. You can make a PrizePicks lineup as little as 60 seconds. Just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stats, and you're locked in. And what you should do? You should definitely do more than for JJ Bleday getting a double, because do what? He's been doing that, and he's doing it wonderfully. You can now get up to 100 times your money with baseball-only lineups on PrizePicks. If you submit a winning lineup featuring 4 demon squares, you'll cash in big time on the biggest moments of baseball's first half. What you got to do is download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Do again. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB, all lowercase, for a first deposit match of $100. PrizePicks. Pick more. Pick less. In the end, it's that easy. Hey, where is your hub? Sorry for the little bop there. Where's your hub for getting all of your great sports news and information? May I recommend that you head over to Locked On Sports Today. It is the only 24/7 streaming channel you'll find on YouTube with all the talent from Locked On MLB, from Locked On NFL, from all the Locked On national shows and the local teams covering every league. Follow 24/7 streaming on YouTube and on the free Fire Channel app on Amazon. That's right. Let's say that again. It is available on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channel app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. In the middle of watching the game yesterday, we got word about Willie Mays. And I'm going to try to keep it together because on Locked On MLB, I kind of lost it. He was my dad's favorite player. My dad grew up a rabid Giants fan, both in New York growing up. My father grew up in Bridgeport, Connecticut, where he followed the Giants, were his team, and Willie Mays. And then when we moved to the Bay Area from New England, my dad became the single biggest Giant fan in the world. And the last game I ever saw at a stadium with my dad before he died was at what's now Oracle Park. It was AT&T Park then. The Giants and the Royals in the World Series in 2014. And so it was a sad day in the Sullivan household when we heard that Willie Mays died, and knowing the connection it had to my pop. There's a connection with the A's too. That the final game that Willie Mays ever played in the major leagues was in the 1973 World Series. And at the time, Willie Mays had rejoined the New York Mets. He actually, first day with the New York Mets was on May 14, 1972. He played for the Mets against the Giants and hit a home run, hit the go-ahead home run against the Giants. On that same day in Connecticut, I was born. That's right. I was born on the day that Willie Mays homered against the Giants in his first day game with the Mets. Now, his time with the Mets has been much maligned because he was, he was on the wrong side of 40 and had been playing for a long time. He had put a lot of mileage on his body, and the Giants were shedding everyone. And the Giants got rid of a ton of players, and it was a terrible time for the Giants. They won the division in 71. They probably could have won the pennant in 71. They had an unbelievable team. And by 73, almost everyone was on a team was gone. Gaylord Perry was traded away. Juan Marichal was with the Red Sox and then the Dodgers, if you could believe it. Willie McCovey was traded away. Orlando Cepeda was long gone at that point. George and the young players like George Foster was traded away. Gary Matthews was traded away. Eventually Bobby Bonds was traded in 75. They traded Bobby Bonds over to the New York Yankees, or 74 they did that. And in 72 they traded away Willie Mays. It's unbelievable. I don't know who they had left. It was an absolute bloodbath of players being let go. And A's fans, this was around the time the A's were dominating, and they won the 5 straight division titles and the 3 straight World Series. And the decline in attendance and the Stonehams basically throwing their hands in the air meant that after the 1976 season, the Giants were looking to move to Toronto. That's true. Can you imagine what that would have done to Bay Area sports? Could you imagine if the Giants had just had the bloodbath of everyone, including Willie Mays, abandoned the Bay Area, and then suddenly this whole region was the A's? Our lives would be different then. There probably would have been a movement to make them the San Francisco A's, but probably they would have built a baseball stadium for the freaking A's, is what they would have done back in the 80s. And you would have, you go down these what ifs. But anyway, the what ifs are Willie Mays was dealt to the Mets, and the Mets had the unbelievable run where they were in dead last place in the middle of the 1973 season. And that was the You Got to Believe Mets, and they crawled back and won the division and wound up taking the pennant from a far superior Cincinnati Reds team. And Willie Mays was essentially a part-time player on that team. Yogi Berra was the manager. If you're going to have an interesting trivia question, who was Willie Mays' final major league manager? The answer is Yogi Berra. And there was pressure on Berra to play Mays for sentimental reasons. And Berra was a little bit like, I'm trying to win the freaking World Series here. And Mays got his final hits as a Met in the Oakland Coliseum, games 1 and 2 of the 73 World Series. Unfortunately, the Oakland Coliseum was also where Willie Mays' playing mortality was exposed. He fell in center field trying to get a fly ball. He clearly was no longer the player who dominated baseball, and he was benched for the final 5 games of the World Series. And remember, there was no DH then, so they couldn't put him as DH, but Yogi never brought him in as a pinch hitter. Now, the Mets wound up taking a 3-2 lead in the World Series, but Yogi made a critical error involving a future Hall of Famer. And it was not the decision to bench Willie Mays. But Tom Seaver convinced Yogi Berra to have him start Game 6 of the World Series as a potential World Series clincher. He did it on short rest against Catfish Hunter. And Yogi, succumbed to the pressure and started Seaver. And Seaver wasn't on his game. And Seaver and the Mets lost to Catfish. And they went to Game 7. And the Mets had to start George Stone. And the A's took over thanks to huge home runs first by Bert Campaneris, or Campy Campaneris, he preferred to be called, and then by Reggie Jackson, who clinched the World Series MVP. And when the Mets won, and it was a strange World Series because it involved the Mike Andrews suspension and Dick Williams was going to resign, but the A's beat the Mets, and with that, Willie Mays' career was over. And he ended on the bench in the Oakland Coliseum, but his final time on the field was Game 2 of the World Series, a strange extra inning game where the Mets won. And the last real lasting image of Willie Mays was him arguing at home plate at a blown call of him holding his hands in the air. But Willie Mays, arguably the greatest player of all time, died the other day. I'm holding it together here And A's fans know that he ended his career in Oakland. And give A's fans credit. Back then, in 73, even though he was a giant, when he was introduced, they gave him a long-standing ovation because it was the arrival of the San Francisco Giants that really, in so many ways, put the Bay Area on the map in terms of Major League Baseball. You know, it is time to start thinking about my life insurance because I'm 52. I'm 52, which means approximately 1/3 of my life is over. And I need to have a peace of mind in case something happens to me, that I have life insurance to provide for my family. Policygenius is the nation's leading online marketplace for life insurance. It saves you time and money so you can provide your family a financial safety net starting today. Policygenius can give you life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million worth of coverage. And some options are 100% online and let you avoid unnecessary medical exam. Let Policygenius take away some of the worries of what your family would do if something happened to you. So Policygenius gives you unbiased advice from a licensed expert support team. They have no incentive to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust their guidance. Thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers found their best needs were brought to them by Policygenius. So check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonmlb or click the link in the description below to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you can save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonmlb. We talk about death. Now let's talk about taxes. Here on Locked On A's, we pride ourselves on giving you the latest news for your Oakland A's, whether it's the offseason, the draft, or the potential move. But do you know what else is year-round? Easy for you to say? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Get the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA. Easy for you to say. Tax Network USA. They go to bat for you. And I'm telling you, as someone who's worked for a whole bunch of media companies, sometimes they pay in cash, sometimes they pay in 1099s. They don't take taxes out. You need people like Tax Network USA to be on your side. Otherwise, you could owe piles of money come April 15th. They've got over 14 years of experience with an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau. Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters like I had with the 1099s that require tax planning, or finally your ship comes in and you have a big parlay, you got to help correctly file your taxes. Call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. See the link in the episode description below. That is Tax Network USA. Here's a reminder that Locked On has created the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. It's available on YouTube on the free Amazon Fire TV channel app. Locked On Sports Today. It is there with all the best talent from the Locked On Sports Network, including national shows and the local teams. Stream 24/7 on YouTube on the free Amazon Fire TV channel app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So let's pull this together, A's fans. You got Reagan's coming up. You got Lugo coming up. Tough Kansas City teams. Just split the next 2 games. And do you know what? Got a better taste in our mouth. This is our last summer in Oakland. The last summer in Oakland, let's have more games where they can cue up celebration. Let's have more games where the team just follows through. We know the A's aren't better than most teams, but remember what you need to do. Avoid the big inning. Don't make stupid plays and put some crooked numbers on the board. And also don't rely too much on the home run. Look what happened the other day. They put crooked numbers on the board a few times. They didn't rely on the home run. They got a home run, but they got doubles and played smart baseball. And while there were a couple big innings for the Royals, they didn't break it open. Win those games. Tough games as they may be. The Royals are a tough team. But do you know what? the A's could show a little bit of resilience. They came back after that long road trip and punched the Royals right in the mouth, right out of the gate. Let's do it today. Let's make it 2 in a row. The A's, since reaching that 500 mark back on May 4th, have only won 1 series. That was that weird series against Colorado. Let's make it 2. Let's make it 2 and take the bad taste of mouth out of the 9-game losing streak and start winning some games. So follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter and Instagram. And I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Celebrating that rare thing, an A's win. This has been Locked On A's. Happy Juneteenth, everybody. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.